Like putting the ball.
Get hit tonight.
Lincoln Town Commons.
Right.
Make those all look pretty.
We could forego the pledge today, so you can just go right ahead with what you brought for us for your workshop. What do you have on tap?
Well, first thing we have on tap is the Dragon Pit and Mr. Kelly, ETTI. I suspect I should refer to it as that. We were very pleased with the meeting with Mr. Kelly the other night, last Monday night in his place of business. We made the remark that we wish that this had happened earlier, and I think it would have solved a lot of problems as far as that was concerned.
The only question I had was his retaining pools.
Yeah.
I just, as long as they're lined so that they don't leach anything back into the water, or excuse me, into the groundwater, I should say. And then I think they got some hurdles to go with dumping that stuff back into the Savatas River too. So it's out of the water department's control.
Yeah, it's not under us, as far as that's concerned.
That'd be
You
under
know,
code enforcement, I believe.
Well, it's really in the DEP hands. Their engineer and firm, Wright Pierce, is working with Mark Stebbins from DEP. I've had conversations with him, and I'm not sure if anybody from the Water District has. But according to them, they're within what they are allowed to do in that site, and I don't know anything about water passing into the Sabanus River.
Well, all their drainage was going to be piped into the groundwater drainage from runoff and stuff like that, stormwater drainage, I guess, is going to be dumped in the Sabanus River. They said it was going to be filtered,
Treated or
treated,
filtered.
yeah.
It's pretty much just settling.
But that's a later project, so that's whatever gets developed there, not now. I mean, that's basically if you have buildings or drainage or.
Well, if they put a road in, they're going to have to do something.
Well, he has to go through, before he does anything to start developing that property, he has to go before the planning board for a site plan review.
Right. Right now, he's
And
just
he hasn't
putting it
done
in the
that.
grade.
Yeah, he's just leveling that area from what I understand and what the DEP
Right,
understands.
Wright Pierce gave him a finished grade for any septic, or not septic, stormwater runoffs to be pitched properly to go to wherever it's gonna end up at. And that's what he's trying to level it off to right now. So,
I had a little different understanding of under whose control this is. I understand that DEP has no control over this piece of property because it's an abandoned pit. And DEP started acquiring control of pits in 1979. And anything prior to 1979 was under the local jurisdiction, which would fall with the council or the selectmen at that time.
enforcement.
Yeah.
According
So-
to what we understand he's doing there and what our code enforcement officer has been out, he's doing within his rights to do that, which is relocate materials. He's not mining it. He's trying to bring it back to a natural state. And according to Mark, that's where his jurisdiction is, and he can do as he pleases.
I'm not questioning that at all, Steve. What I'm saying is I believe that the council has more authority than what they believe they have as far as the regulation of this area is concerned.
And I could never get the distinction between mining and what he's doing. Can you define the difference between mining and what he's actually doing?
he's got a permit to remove so much
Material.
Okay,
material out.
removing is different than sorting and grading and selling material.
No, well, removing and sorting and grading and selling it's the same thing.
Well-
Up to so much.
But again, it's in these folks' hands on how you handle this. And I don't know if the council's aware of it, but I know Mr. Eldridge is. We've been served with a complaint from the PUC on what's going on in that pit.
It's not a complaint from the PUC. It's a
Well-
complaint from a local person who lives up on Route 9.
Group of people.
Group of people. And the PUC, from my understanding, the Public Office of Public Advocacy has sent a request back to the Water District. And I guess you have 10 days to respond if he's doing anything that you find that they should investigate.
I think that's probably pretty much what we're looking at right now. I know there
Right,
is a,
the-
we have to
The
respond.
commissioners haven't had a chance to
No, we
sit
haven't
down
had
and
a chance to-
discuss
No,
this.
we just
no.
got it this
Right.
morning, and the
But-
council hasn't seen it.
What is their complaint?
We're not quite sure.
Right. You'd have to read the whole thing. It's
I'm
quite
just
quite
curious,
lengthy.
because when we came out of that meeting the other night, I thought the landowner and the abutters were all very.
No,
This is not-
this is from someone outside of the area of the pit. They're concerned with the wellhead and the quality of the water and possibility of contamination. So they filed a complaint with the PUC.
Did it get
That's a
forwarded
more-
to the council?
Not yet.
Okay.
It just came in today, I believe.
Yeah, it just came in
But,
today.
that's something that, goes back to the question as to what is being done in that pit. And, people are concerned.
I think as council, I mean, what we've understood since up to this point, and what we actually understood in the meeting the other night, that the landowner was really upfront about exactly what he was doing at this point. He's actually been to the planning board in multiple meetings. The planning board is very aware of what's going on and actually have been very upfront and known exactly what's happening. After the meeting the other night down to the ETTI, and it sounded like the land abutters were actually very pleased that something was happening when we did, to scare it and try to make it a little bit more controlled. But as a council, my own personal feelings, I mean, I believe that we actually have a planning board and a code enforcer in place to actually handle these things. And it sounds like from that avenue that they were, the planning board and everybody's pretty much out front what's happening. So the idea of us not having control, I would assume that if someone goes through the proper permits and goes through the proper authorities in town, I mean, the boards that we have in place to take care of that, it's all kind of in check. Speaking with Mr. Powell leaving the other night from ETTI and for us going in and meeting with him with the abutters, it really didn't sound like there was very many unanswered questions to the point where anybody had a response back to ask them to come back with any further information. It sounded like he answered pretty much all the inquiries everybody had, including the abutters. So I mean, unless there's something that is unforeseen or something we don't know what's going on, which is pretty plain and open, I mean, from what you can see is happening there. As a council, I mean, we're basically in the control of making sure that the politics in town, not the politics, but the policies in town are in place. And that's someone coming to the planning board, giving a review, a code enforcement checking it. As councilors, we're not actually, number one, have the expertise to walk over to the site and say he's doing something wrong. And we have to assume that we have the experts in town that get paid to do that job, and hopefully they're doing it correctly. And as of this point, we actually haven't heard of anything not happening the way it was intended to do. So, I mean, as a council, one councilor, I mean, that's where our standpoint is you know, there's a procedure in town, and they're following the procedure. To assume or to actually think that something could or would happen, I mean, it's really tough if someone's following the proper procedures and seems to have it pretty much under control.
I disagree with you, Fern, on one thing. As a council and as a governing body, we have not put through the wellhead protection for this whole project or for anything happening on that wellhead. And I think that we're giving a big disservice to this community by dragging our feet for the last 3 years to not put this wellhead protection in place.
Do you think when they actually said that the engineers designed this to meet the standards and beyond of the wellhead protection, that they were lying, or they just didn't have, to me, they're not going beyond, they're actually going to what the wellhead protection was, to that limit and beyond. So it's not like it's being engineered anything less than that.
But the thing of it is, the wellhead protection is not a legal document as of yet.
But they're actually what was written as a document.
What was written, but it has not been approved by the council in the town of Lisbon. So at this point, we have been dragging our feet for 3 years and not put this into effect.
I don't think
It
we've
will
been
be on
dragging
for our
feet
first
for the
meeting,
beginning.
our next meeting.
I think it's a very important thing that we get this done.
Yeah, it's gonna be on for our next meeting.
It better be.
The other thing I'd like to point out on that is we don't know what changes have been made in it either, since the lawyers got a hold of it. And,
That's exactly
and my personal opinion is, if the planning board approved it, but yet it went back to the lawyers, shouldn't it go back to the planning board?
Depends how substantial the changes are, I guess.
Well,
Look at it and see.
Substantial, I think if
Any
anything
changes,
changed,
in my
should go
opinion.
back.
I mean, it's been 3
If
years.
they approved it, but yet it went to do changes,
But I mean, the question is then it drags it out by another couple of months because they only meet once a month. So are you willing to
What's
wait
2
until
more months
end of
after 3
summer?
years of
You know,
it?
that's what it'll be.
and
I didn't have control over that. I wasn't here then.
the one thing I'd like to ask is the copies available?
I don't have it with me, but I'm sure Steve can get you some.
I
copies.
asked for a copy today and I did not get it because he still hasn't received it. But he has been trying to accommodate,
Who's we, or he?
Roger Terrio
Okay.
is our attorney who has a document, who has been trying to work with AvCog and make changes that they have recommended. He
No,
has
they're
also
just-
been
just
working
that
with
sheet.
attorneys from Maine Electronics, trying to satisfy some of their concerns about the language.
I mean, this is a timeline that Paul worked up, just for anybody's opinion on how long this been's going out. So it's actually started in '05.
When I was on the planning board, we were dealing with it.
And we wanted the council, the new people on the council, to see the timeline on that, just so they would have an idea on how long this thing has been going on.
it's a contentious issue because some of the landowners don't always like when you restrict what they can do on
Oh,
their
I
land.
understand
So they
that,
push
yeah.
back, and I was on the planning board, we were trying to get it through for a couple of years there.
Another copy.
For myself, thank you. Anybody else need any? I think, Fern, when we find out, as Mr. Aldridge has pointed out, this just came in today, and I'm not sure if it went to Mr. Adams or Mr. Aldridge, or I think it came to you first.
It came,
The complaint?
Came to the water department
Yeah,
first.
came to the
I think when you start looking at this, it's not gonna be the abutters that are complaining.
No, it's not.
No, I mean, the meeting we had the other night, most of the abutters, I assume that pretty much most of them were there, and they were thrilled beyond anything else that what was happening. They felt that the pit was unsecured, and they were really concerned about what was happening out there, and, you know, there's a lot of partying going on, and a lot of this uncontrollable stuff. They're glad to see the pit's actually more secure now than it's probably ever been in the last probably 10 years, and actually not to worry about who's in their backyard or what's happening. So, I mean, as abutters, they were pretty happy. I mean,
Yeah.
one of the things that I've had as the council is many calls when people actually just, unfortunate with not a lot of information, which none of us really do, is exactly, you know, what the steps have been taken, and assuming that the council's really been, you know, really taking the back seat, which unfortunately, in the way most of these things take place, is, I mean, there are proper parts of the town, and unfortunately, you know, we don't actually attend every planning board meeting. So, I mean, a lot of the stuff that's been up front, the council was made aware of one particular meeting that I wasn't there, exactly what some of the intentions were there. So I don't think anything's been, you know, hidden or on the sly or actually misled. I think as a project, it's been actually put out pretty straightforward. If you look at what's happening in the planning board, actually felt pretty secure at that meeting that pretty much everything was it's been done right. So, I mean, we only have to go, only thing we can do is go back and actually look at the people we have in place to take care of these things and hope that they are. And
Well, I had a meeting,
you know.
I had a meeting with Mr. Kelly last, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago, I guess it was. And I told him, I'm not really so concerned with his operations as I have found Scott to be very meticulous with his equipment and his maintenance and all that. But I questioned, I said, I think that you're gonna outgrow this property again. And what's gonna happen to it then? So that's why we need this wellhead protection in place and on the books so that people know when they look at this piece of property, if it comes available. And I think you saw the plans as well as we did. There are plans for 3 other businesses in that area, you know, and those are the ones we have to be concerned with as well.
I totally agree, but I think we actually have people, and anything that happen needs to go through the basis first.
Oh, I'm not gonna dispute that. I just wanna make sure that our Ts are crossed and our Is are dotted as we go into this, and we just don't say, oh, it's gonna be okay.
But the assumption that as a council or as a town that we've been really sitting back and not been just doing anything, I think is kind of misleading a little bit for a lot of people, that's all.
Well-
And what's been said, that's all.
You know, I'm not trying to point any fingers, but you say the council hasn't been doing anything, but this ordinance sat for over a year with no movement, none.
You know, Paul,
And-
to be honest with you, we, as a council, the last 3 years that I've been on it, I mean, I would love to go to a meeting and actually do something productive, but our meetings have been very non-productive, and I'm not gonna apologize, we haven't got stuff much done, but I can honestly say if we actually had 3 months that we could actually move forward with agendas,
Well,
probably get a lot done.
but what I'm saying, Fern, is that may be true, but I think these gentlemen and myself feel that this is much more important than some of the issues the council has addressed. This is going to protect our resource.
I totally agree with it, but unfortunately, the other ones come forward too, and it's, you know, how many ordinances right now, Steve, have we been working on in the last
3 years?
3 years? We've actually had, what, a dozen more ordinances that come in front of us. I don't think we've actually made it through, what, maybe 2 of them, if that's the case. So, I mean, I'm not demeaning this particular ordinance, it's as important as the rest of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Unfortunately, if I could put in order the most important things, our meetings would be a lot different, but unfortunately, there'd be a lot of disappointed people at the other end because we would take care of the most important things. So I don't think there's a member on the council that if you asked them had any intentions to make this slide. I don't think our management in town had to make this slide. I think it's more just the idea of that slow wheel turns, and unfortunately, when it comes to a circumstance like this, it looks like it really stops. but, I mean, I don't think it's an intention of anybody on the council that actually put this off on purpose.
The way the planning board meets once a month means that things go very slowly at that level. If they go back for a change, then it delays it by a month, and then they have to do 2 readings, that's 2 months,
And before this even got to legal
Falls
counsel,
across, there's a lot.
AvCog had it for at least over a year since I've been here. They had a draft, it
Does
went
it-
back, it's been back and forth several times with AvCog, and then it finally, the planning board got to
So-
look at it, had some meetings, and then went back to,
Not to beat a dead horse here, but if the council recognizes that it's important, putting it on our next agenda, is it a big deal? I mean, it's
go on.
important, the important thing is that it gets done
That's right, let's
sooner
go on
rather
then.
than later and before
Well-
anything else takes place,
No, I
right?
agree with that.
So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Let's
I
go.
We
don't
would
think
just
there's
like
any
a
sense in sitting here
copy of the
beating
wellhead
ourselves back and
ordinance
forth about-
before
Right.
it's
Sir-
the reading.
yeah, I'm sure Steve can set you up with copies of that, and then if you have any
Roger
problems,
was
come back
supposed
to
to
us
send
and
it to
tell
me
us.
today, he didn't get to it.
Okay, so as long as we have a chance to review it
Yeah.
before
We
the
will. Sure.
the
And our
June
next
meeting.
meeting is in 3 weeks, so come back before then and tell us if you have an issue of it, and we do go back to the planning board, we can do that if we have to, but,
I mean,
just
the
add a
biggest
couple
thing
months.
we're gonna have, talking with Paul, is trying to figure out what has changed.
Right, yeah.
Yep.
And I'm sure you can, run
original-
Terrio and see what
The
changes
original
he
draft or
recommended.
one that was presented the first time to this new one, is figure out what has changed.
The changes should be in there though, because when we get the document back, it will have the original language and then like a strikeout.
It's underscored?
New language is,
Yes.
yeah.
It should have.
It should have, hopefully.
Tracking.
That'll make it a lot easier.
We'll hope so.
But again, I have to fall back on something that was said here just a minute ago, is you rely on your experts to tell you what to do or what to accept. But I don't see that with this commission. They have suggested that we pass that ordinance the way it is, and that hasn't happened. So, can someone explain that?
Well, again,
I mean, I think the reason that happened is because we had a number of experts that didn't agree, okay? We had disagreements between economic development and the water commissioners, we had disagreements with code and everybody, so
You
we had so many
classify
disagreements.
economic development as a expert person on what?
I do, because I think they have an interest of the business in town and
No,
how
no, we're talking wellhead.
how much are we restricting things, right? And so the idea is to come up with an ordinance that meets, to the best of our ability, everybody's requirements.
Our concern is every time there's a change to satisfy Main Electronics or somebody else, to us, it's more risk going to the water supply. And you're gonna put a price tag on your town's water supply, I think you're crazy. It's a priceless commodity.
I'm not trying to
And
put a
if people
price
are
tag
worried
on it.
about tax dollars in the properties or trying to not restrict too much.
right, Roger.
The one thing that everybody seems to be forgetting about is we're putting a change to the comprehensive plan out to the voters before the wellhead protection plan is in place, and that, I believe, is illegal.
We're not doing that.
We're not trying to change a comprehensive plan?
You've already
We already
voted on the
amended it, right.
recommendations of the comprehensive plan.
Right, that doesn't actually change the zone.
You-
That's gonna be
you
changed
still
in the
have to,
vote,
you have to
though.
pass the wellhead protection ordinance.
How can
Going
you
to the
change
planning
it?
board before you make the recommendations for any land use changes that they're gonna be recommending. Can I ask a question, just,
Go ahead.
how long has it been since Dragon operated this pit?
Prior to 79.
Actually, I think it was 87 when they closed
They
down.
closed it. And why wasn't it a concern up until this point about the pit? When you've got supposedly cars being dumped there, refrigerators being dumped there, people biking on motorcycles through there, why wasn't it a concern up until this time?
It was private property, and people, we
Well, it
were
isn't.
Well, it is private property.
It is
Zone
still
hasn't
private
been
property.
changed, nothing's
We
been done
approached the
yet.
town, how many years ago, when Mr. Beanie was here?
And
to buy the land.
actually, in 2004, we sent a letter to Dragon to acquire that property. We went into negotiations with Dragon, we talked with the town council, at that time the Board of Selectmen, and we asked them to assist us in acquiring that property. And I could come up with a timeline on that as well. It never happened.
What was the cost they quoted?
There was no
We
cost.
had-
We never got to that point in the negotiation.
It probably would have been a substantial amount of money.
Well, you had a pretty high value on the property here in town that
We
you were
would've
taxing
paid it.
them on,
Yep.
from my
That was-
understanding. I
that was-
don't know, a couple
You're right.
hundred thousand.
It was.
Yeah, but
You're right.
the actual
And the
value
actual
was
value
less.
was
And
much
if
less.
we went through the
I don't know what the
expense of an
value is.
appraisal on that property, Dragon worked with us and got a survey done on the property, and then the Board of Selectmen chose not to take action.
That's right.
Well,
Town couldn't afford it at the time.
So we were gonna pay for it.
Yeah, the water department was gonna acquire the property.
So, I mean, I guess that wasn't explained to us at the time.
Yeah, I think it was, Mr. Bowie.
Well,
And I can show you
it
some
never
letters
came
that
back
came
to
to
us.
I
you.
don't,
It
I
never
don't know
came-
what this is getting us.
No, it's
to be
not
honest.
getting us anywhere.
It's getting,
I really don't know what this is getting us. right?
we could go all we want on past history. Let's just
Exactly.
move forward from now on.
Exactly, that was my point
Well, we
earlier.
were just responding to the comment that why is all of a sudden it wasn't all of a
It
sudden.
was a concern,
back
it always
then.
has been a concern.
Right,
but,
on our part, it's always been a concern, the water department.
Anyway, let's move.
But we're kind of combining 1 and 4 here now.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Do you want to go to standpipe? 1 and 4. Let's go to standpipe.
Well, I just put standpipe, I didn't put Route 9, so.
Okay. Well, the first thing, I guess, as far as the standpipe is concerned, I'd like to address the present standpipe that's in Lisbon. I have photos here, and I don't know how many people have been up there lately, and things you can't see from the road. I'll pass it around, let you have a look at them. That's the gate going in, and after that, you'll see the structures. The standpipe up there was built in 1922, holds 500,000 gallons of water, and as you look at the pictures, the standpipe is in better than reasonable condition. The thing that's not shown or doesn't show up from the road is the fact that there are 2 cell phone providers up there, T-Mobile and Verizon, and they pay the Lisbon Water Department approximately $50,000 a year in revenue, and it's on a 30-year contract with a 5% increase every year. So in order for us to do away with that tank, we've got a contract with T-Mobile and Verizon we got to deal with. And if you look at it, Verizon, I believe, has the tank wrapped in their antenna. T-Mobile has the antenna that sits side of it and goes up in the air. And these are all things you can't see from the road. So that's why I brought those along, just so that people would have an idea of what's going on. We have been negotiating and talking with Mr. Upham about acquiring a piece of property up there on Upland Road to put up a new tank. Mr. Upham is in a kind of a hard place right now. He realizes the fact that the town needs a water tank, but he's also trying to keep his family and his neighbors happy with what's going on there. So we did go in the other day and we located a spot that we thought would be good. We've got the elevations on that, and the board will be discussing that further at the next meeting. That's where we are with it. The higher we go up the hill, the lower the tank will be. In other words, if we were, I'm just using this as an example, if we were to put a tank, let's say in Mr. Upham's backyard, the tank would probably not be any more than 5 feet out of the ground. Now, a lot of this is contingent upon the amount of ledge that's underneath. So, because what we would do is be able to dig down and have the tank, well, probably 3/4, if not more, of the tank below ground. And I know I came, when the town had a problem with wells on Route 9, I came to this board and I told you it would require a tank. The board has sold the piece of property that was up there at one time. We did so because we felt that we probably would not follow through with the original plans of putting a line on Upland Road, Route 9. We were going to be able to accomplish what we wanted to accomplish by putting the water line on the power line, which is adjacent to the Foster property on just off Route 9, goes over by the new school. So we could have done that. But we can't really abandon this tank until we have a tank operational somewheres in this area. I don't know if I've answered your questions, or if you have any further questions on it.
If you do the new tank, what's any timeline?
Not really. Personally, well, let me back up a little bit. We borrowed money through the town for Upland Road, and it was all thrown into the same bond, the town was going to pay, or repay, I should say, the monies going up Route 9. The water department is gonna pay for the Upland Road project. And we borrowed the money. We have, how much money?
$286,000.
$286,000 left in that money. We've checked with legal counsel, and we can't use that money for anything else but that particular project. In other words, we can apply that 286 towards a tank, okay? We can't use it for anything else. So, I know we've got 196 on here, that's gonna cost us money. We just can't take that money and drop it into 196 and replace the main. So I just wanna make sure you understand that. Approximate price on a tank is, what the engineers tell us, is about $1 per gallon. In other words, if it's a 1,000,000-gallon tank, it'll cost you $1 million. 500,000-gallon tank will cost you $500,000, and that excludes the price of the land of acquiring it. But that's the general guidelines to go by.
How big a tank do you gentlemen think you need?
We have discussed that, and we feel we would like to go 750,000. And the original, well, the plan would be to abandon the Lisbon tank and the Lisbon Falls tank and have everything on one tank. Now, because it does cost a lot of money to paint these tanks, and they have to be done every 20 to 25 years. Both tanks, Lisbon and Lisbon Falls tank, has gone through the extensive lead removal, so there's no lead paint on any of that. We had to envelope that whole thing in plastic and remove the lead. So, 3 to 5 years. That's a guess. Don't hold me to that. That's a pure guess. The problem is pressure. People on Upland Road are not gonna have adequate pressure. We've discussed it, how to get them, they've got water, but if there's a major fire or heavy demand in Lisbon Falls or in Lisbon, they could easily not have water in their homes.
How does that problem get rectified?
With the tank being there, what happens is it's a gravity feed system, so that would force the water down and get the water to their homes.
I was talking about two different projects at one point, you know, they're talking about putting some sort of a booster on in order to increase the pressure.
That's another way of doing it, is putting on a booster station. But if you do the booster station, then what we're forced into is paying electrical charges forever. We're also entering into confined space requirements and hazmats and all that other kind of stuff.
And a lot
And
of
the maintenance.
Then you could have something on the other end to take the pressure back down.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the rest of the system.
Otherwise, it's gonna blow the pipes apart in Lisbon Falls because you're gonna send it up over and then back down, and the pressure will be too much in Lisbon Falls.
And there isn't a concern about the contamination if the tower was put on that site?
What do you mean, what do you mean for contamination?
No,
Yeah,
I think
increase.
our pumps our actual wells are located at Dragon Pit area, the reservoir.
Right, that's just the storage area. There'll be no water pumped from that area at this particular time, although Mr. Upham has indicated that there is a well over there that always has water in it, so it might be something else we would look at sometime. But
I think it's, and you all set with.
I'm set, you go ahead and ask questions
I
if you
think
got
one
them.
of the things that concerned, and something that brought forward that a lot of people that I've gotten information from, I mean, one of the ideas about the idea of selling the tank of that land was put forth, and I even met with Steve one time, is strictly the idea of, unfortunately, we have a project that we can't fund, it's very similar to a lot of projects we have in town, and even if we had the land today, that people would have a question about, we probably wouldn't have the funds to put up a tank, I mean, unless we actually somehow came across some magical money somewhere. It was a thought that I had mentioned to Steve, and I know it actually did Dr. Scott at one point in time, or back and forth, whoever it went, was the idea of just thinking about the idea of, we were able to actually sell a piece of property and get rid of the tank if we were going to get rid of it in the future, would be the idea of take those revenues and help support the new tank. And again, that was strictly just a thought process. It wasn't anything. So I mean, the idea of selling the tank, to be honest with you, I don't believe in my lifetime, listen, we'll see a tank or we'll see that water tower gone. I don't think, because it's a big project. It really is a real big project. So it wasn't one of those things where the council was working on the idea of trying to sell anything. I think it was just a few people actually thinking out loud trying to actually come up with ideas on how to get rid of something. It's kind of like getting rid of an old car so you can buy a new one, so you don't get a new one instead of an old car hanging around. I mean, it's basically what that was a thought was. I would say it's to be long-term. I mean, if you're looking at, 3 to 5 years on a short period to get a tank, if you can find a spot to put it, that's gonna be allowed. I mean, it would be years after that before you would ever do anything with that tank. So I can't see as a council at this point in time that property or that tank going anywhere in the long term.
Well, first of all, go back to your first statement. We wouldn't be able to fund the tank without a bond.
Without a bond.
We would have to have a bond, and it would depend on, what the cost of the land was and everything else. And once we have arrived at a spot to put the tank, then I would assume that the board would go forward with putting the tank up and putting it in service as soon as possible. And
I've heard some discussion and just myself talking out there that some people would like to see us pay the other bond off before we get another bond, the one that we actually have the town pay people for the Route 9 project. But again, I'm not sure how long that goes out.
A 10-year bond.
It was a 10-year bond. Again, I don't know, again, whether it would just be, I would assume that bond would be not just for water users, but for the taxpayers too. So, again, it'd be a lot of discussion how that went. And again, it was strictly the idea of selling that parcel with the tank was more the idea of generating revenue to try to fund a project, so we didn't have to borrow the money. But
well, that could happen. That could happen. If we borrowed the money to build the tank, put the tank in place, then sold the money, then sold the old tank, and that money could certainly, in my opinion, should be applied towards the any outstanding debt of the tank.
Yeah,
That I would 100% support that.
yeah. So again, it was just, again, a lot of people kind of thought that the town was moving forward on really trying to negotiate the idea of selling that, but I guess as a town, I guess it would be just the idea of more, a few hundred people just thinking out loud to actually kind of get that idea out there. So I know a lot of people are really concerned about the town's practice on selling property and how we were going to do it, and it was strictly more the idea of a thought process on what can we do to try to generate some revenues to actually try to make the project work. Now, the tank itself, I mean, I sat through the meeting where the engineer had actually mentioned the idea of where that tank would sit, the height of it would need to be if it was kind of close to where we thought originally engineered. Now, as the engineer actually has he given us a height yet of where the tank would need to be? Because some people out there have actually got the 60 foot or in that range. Now, is that an engineered height yet? Or?
Right now, we're looking at 60 feet.
So the engineers come forward and found a spot and actually measured
Well,
about 60 feet.
We found a spot that Mr. Upham is agreeable to.
Because our last
We'd like
meeting,
to
it was
go higher
mentioned-
up, but,
The last meeting that I was at, not a meeting, but I was there.
right, on the property.
That you had mentioned, I thought I'd mentioned that the engineer hadn't actually put together a new proposal or actually measured everything. I didn't think that had happened.
We had to wait
Yeah,
for the
we've
snow to
done it.
melt
So
first.
the engineer actually has a plan in place where, what the height of it would be and everything at this point? Yeah.
But keep in
I
mind,
didn't realize
that goes up rather steeply out there. And the higher we can go, the lower we can keep that tank.
But you do have a plan now exactly what the height would be, where exactly it would sit. at this point in
Yes.
time.
Yeah.
You
And
had
at that point,
your
that
meeting, your next meeting, will you have that available if anyone wants to see that?
I doubt if he has that drawn up at this particular
Yeah.
time.
No, it's
But
just
we will.
numbers.
Because right now, it's
Just
just, it's
numbers.
out there floating around, and people get scared by it, and
Let
oh
us-
my God, what are you doing to Route 9?
Well, you don't want to put out information that
Right, it's not.
is
Right.
not
Accurate.
accurate as
Right.
far as where we're going to put the tank.
Right, yeah.
But
Because
unfortunately, I
You
think
can
that's
get
already
some
happened though.
Right,
I mean, I
people
have
already
people calling me
spreading
saying,
rumors around.
putting up a 60-foot tank and it's gonna happen within the next year. You mean, so I mean, I think the information's already out there, Paul, so the idea of saying that we don't wanna put out information, unfortunately, I think the information's out there, and that's why I was asking if it was, something was
well,
dedicated,
I
because
guess
that's
this is
the
what
phone calls
happens.
we get, that's
This-
all.
I guess this is what happens when you be proactive, when you're proactive to try and let people know this is what we're looking at doing, and they jump on the bandwagon that, oh, that's gonna happen. Well, it may not.
Everyone
It's gonna be a
imagines the worst.
60-foot tank, but most of it's gonna be in the ground.
Well,
No.
no, see, don't misunderstand what Bill said. The higher up that hill you can go, the lower the tank can be in the ground.
Right.
But right now, Mr. Upham is not willing to let us go any higher up that hill.
Oh, okay.
But that would
So,
be further back from the road if it's lower, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's not gonna be up, the people are thinking of 60 feet up at the top of the hill,
No.
what's
No.
going around now.
No.
But for just the sake of conversation, if that tank was put behind my house, on the top of the hill, how much of that tank would show?
Do you know your elevation?
420 feet.
Yeah.
Do you know how much is ledge?
Well,
Very
it just say if
Very
you
little?
could dig all the way through,
think
it
it'd be
won't be
underground.
little or nothing.
Right,
It would be underground.
right,
Yeah.
Almost.
That's my point.
Yeah.
yep.
If you could put the tank underground and nobody's gonna see it,
Care.
why wouldn't that be the prime opportunity to put it in that particular place?
Take Roger's house.
Because they would,
Absolutely.
we would
It's for sale.
Still need access to services.
How big is your
Like
basement?
Roger's house.
You would still need
Can we
access.
flood it out?
well, yeah, have to- but we would have to have a fence around it.
Right.
And you would,
So if it's in the guy's backyard.
Right,
there'd have
it's
to be a
really not
fence
his
around it
backyard.
for,
Right.
for security reasons, and we would certainly have trees, little shrub trees, you know, to disguise anything that was there.
Right.
And it's not something, well, as I pointed out, somebody, when we painted this tank in Lisbon Falls, I was approached to try to paint it so it looked like a Moxie can. And that didn't go over well. They didn't want to pay for that, so. But anyway,
Would be kinda neat.
yeah, I think it would be neat, but you want to pay for it?
Should we mention about the people who are uneasy about it? We do have some citizens who don't want it in their backyard. So we're not sure if that's even going to be a viable location.
Right, yeah.
What about Route 196? Is that
We were informed that the state DOT was going to do I guess it's a grind and repave.
I believe next
Yeah.
summer?
Right.
Planned.
And we were hoping to replace some of the old piping, if not all the piping in that, over the period of time, but we're not quite sure if we could do it or not.
Well, again, it all falls back on, we were hoping they were gonna do more than just mill and fill. But, because, of course, once we cut it, we gotta fill it back in with asphalt, and it really gets
Right, once
much
they
more
pave it, they
difficult.
don't have a moratorium on it.
Right, but there are some areas on 196 that absolutely need to be replaced. And again, that falls into the range of bonding it.
I think November would really be the closest time we could get a bond if you were.
How much,
So
how
you'd have to
much
go get
length do
money
you have
for
to
the funds
replace?
to go
What's the
do what you
total
want to
length
do.
of pipe?
Well,
Is
if
it
we
from
did,
the Lewiston line all the way up
No.
through?
No,
No,
if we-
just a section they're paving.
Well, they're paving, now they're
Entire
planning on
thing.
paving the whole length of
Right.
196.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, they changed
They
it again,
the
huh?
plan.
Yeah, it
The
came
lo-
out of the federal
More
funds,
from
not on
one-
ours.
Moody Road to-
The line from Moody Avenue to the Lewiston line is all new. That would not have to be
Right.
touched.
but from Moody Road to, the hill,
Medical center?
yeah, the medical center there,
That's
about 3.5 miles, I think it is.
Have you got a projected cost at all for that yet? I mean,
Well, as far as material, we do, but as far as labor and, you know, you're talking a lot of traffic and control.
What did it cost for like Upland Road per foot? I mean, just, if you had to give a number.
For digging or for everything?
For everything, if you took all the costs together and said what it ended up being $1 per foot.
It was probably between $80 and $90 a foot.
For 3 miles, that's not gonna reach.
Nope.
And that's what we're gonna have to look at and see how much of it,
Right.
you know, we need to,
That
because
would be ideal.
there is no line out here in 196 that goes from, where it goes down over to the pump station through to the corner. There is no water line. So that's a decision we'll have to make. Do we put a water line in here, or do we leave the existing line back there?
from Bowell, you mean?
Yes, that's the way the water goes now. And then we've got a pair of parallel sixes in what we used to call Lisbon Center. There's 2 6-inch mains, one on each side of the road, which,
And also up in front of the corn shop, there's 2 lines,
Yep.
one on each side.
I think the only thing you really be able to do to make it practical would be the idea of come up with a plan on where you really want it to go and what the cost factor would be. I mean,
Yep.
besides that, it's strictly just the idea of.
we know we've got a bad section in front of Napa, the new Napa station. And we know we've got some bad pipe in front of the new credit union in Lisbon.
That must have been added on, right, at one point, because Credit Union Water, did they actually backfeed that from the other side of Mill Street? I mean, Powell, or? credit unions kind
No,
of.
no, we're talking the new one down in,
Oh,
The
okay.
old,
In
the old
Lisbon.
Bangor
Okay, you're
State.
The old
talking, okay, I
Bangor,
got you, I
yeah.
was saying credit union, okay.
right.
Not new anymore.
Not new anymore, you're right.
So we're working on that, and we will certainly keep the council informed on what our decisions are.
Probably break it down to 3 sections, do this section at what cost, and then probably the whole thing.
Yeah.
What risk do you run if you did replace it like that, of breaking the old pipe on either end?
Well, the risk you run into is MDOT's not gonna let you do it once they pave it. So you're just gonna wind up doing what you can.
If there's breaks,
At
they
that
won't be too
point-
thrilled that we're going in there, digging it all back up.
And don't know if we could do it at the same time either, right? Because
Right.
they're gonna just be grinding the top couple inches off and then repaving that.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's gonna have to be done
But I
ahead
mean,
of
we might
time,
be able to
really.
work with them to allow you to come in and dig for, you know, a certain period of time to do that.
Well,
They do
the
that
upland
section.
stretch took us all summer to do that. This one is even longer.
Well, I mean, I'm not thinking of the whole 3 miles, where you
Right.
had your critical sections defined. You know, we might be able to squeeze something in with MDOT if we sat them down at the table and worked it with them, so that you guys could bring your equipment in and dig it and fill it back in, and then they come over and
I know,
smooth it out and pave it.
according to Mr. Dowdy, the Brunswick's going through that right now, right?
Yeah, Pleasant Street.
Pleasant Street. And Mr. Longchamp is doing the work down there.
That's a
And
tough-
actually, they're doing it
Yeah,
at night.
working at night, 'cause
Yeah.
it's a nightmare.
Traffic's so bad in
How
there.
bad.
It wouldn't be a lot better on 196, I can
No.
That could probably be a night job.
Yeah.
No matter what you do, it's gonna be a nightmare.
That's probably pretty much what we had, right?
That was all we had.
As far as just moving forward, because I know there's been a lot of discussion about the standpipe on, I'd say not Route 9, but Upland Road, is it? As far as the commission, what do you have forward for now? Is there any other projected meetings or actually discussion that's gonna happen once you do? Is there anything further at this point in time that the public's gonna be made aware of, or a meeting at all, if there's gonna be any other meetings or discussions that are planned, or?
No, he's got
He's all
everything.
done. He's got everything he
It's up to
We,
you guys to
we certainly
decide.
will hold a
Yeah.
public meeting. I would see no reason not to, to let, once we have the engineer's drawings and his sketches, like the engineers put together, and once we have that, then I see no reason not to have a public meeting, and again, as I said, we'll have to borrow some money, so the people vote the
No,
bond down and it
Once
doesn't
you get
happen.
above 60, it's a lot more expensive.
But it'd be nice to see more of a definite plan, so people actually ask, they can say this
Levels
is actually
actually
what's
have to be
happening.
wide.
Well,
Right now, I think there's a lot of speculation, which always
To hold the
happens.
weight.
yeah, and we're still talking with Mr. Upham, and as I said, he's in a hard way
Yeah.
between trying to keep his family and his neighbors happy and realizing the fact that he'd like to sell a little piece of property to the town for the standpipe. So he's in a hard way there, and I understand that. And we're gonna continue to work with him on that and negotiate with him and see if we can make things, make it work.
One of the things that I mentioned, how many years has that project actually been in the works?
Which project?
The idea of potential Route 9 upland with a tank up there, that's been quite some years, hasn't it?
Long
Yeah.
before I got on the board.
It's,
It was just mentioned to me that someone that actually, this is something that just came up just recently, and I
No,
was
no.
like, as long as I can remember, this has been in discussion.
the original plan came from Taylor Associates out of Auburn, and my father was on the board then.
Yeah.
And what the plan was is to go down, which is now Upland Road, down over Route 9, down over the Gould Road and tie the Gould Road into Main Street. That was the original plan. The town then bought the piece of property up in back of your house, okay? And then through the costs of electrical have gone up, that was pretty much abandoned, and I know Mr. Wells wasn't on the board at the time, but Mr. Dowdy and I was the one who voted against doing it, but the other two wanted to pursue the power line. My thought was, and I know I've conveyed this to several of the council, is if there's any development in the town of Lisbon, that's a logical place where it's gonna go, is on the north side of Upland Road, out in there. And I think that it behooves us to be planned for this development. I know there is little talk right now of development as far as prices of property is concerned and everything, but I believe someday it could happen. And now with that 12-inch main that we have in there, we are ready, so should some person come in and say, listen, we want to put in 50, 75 houses up in there, okay, we've got the water source here now, it would be entirely at their expense, the developer's expense, to put the line in and put in the hydrants and all that kind of stuff, but it could be done now.
The potential's there.
Yeah, just the same as, I've talked to some of the neighbors up in that, somebody could come along to Mr. Upham and say, here's $10 million, we want to put in a windmill farm. And I'm sorry, that's going to be an eyesore, so. We're trying to walk a fine line, that's all I can say.
But I just know the project's been on the books for a long time.
It has been.
There's nothing new anyway.
It has
It's been there for a long time.
And it was scaled back by the more recent board, as I said, Mr. Dowdy, myself, and then Mr. Gurney was on the board at that time. It was scaled back. We said, well, we can accomplish what we want to by getting more water to Lisbon Falls, by going on the power line, and then last year or 2 years ago, whenever it was, the town came in and said, look, we've got a problem with contaminated wells, we need some help. Okay, well, let's bring out the old project, put it back together. And I know I sat here in the meeting and I told people it would require a tank.
Yep, I know, we discussed it, yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Isn't that our timeline for 13 in our budget
Yeah, for the tank?
for the tank?
Yeah, 13 is what,
That's what we kind of estimated we might be at in 2013.
Anything further? You guys have anything more? Anything from council? Okay, well, thank you guys for showing up.
well,
Good to keep in touch.
I think that, yeah, it's good to be able to get these types of meetings together.
Oh, yes, we need more of that. like to call this meeting to order. Could we all rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item, Twyla?
Is roll call. Counselor Bickford.
Yeah.
Counselor Bowie.
Here.
Counselor Cody.
Here.
Counselor LaRochelle.
Here.
Counselor Lunt.
Here.
Counselor Mason.
Here.
And Counselor Pamela.
Here.
Okay, and the first actual item?
Is under consent agenda. Are there any items to be removed for discussion? Seeing none. Order 2011-68 to approve the renewal vitulers licenses for Bootleggers, Canton Pearl, Casamia, China Inn, Chummy's Midtown Diner, Dairy Maid, Dr. Mike's Madness Cafe, Firehouse Diner and Variety, Kitty Corner, Lisbon Dunkin' Donuts, Lisbon Getty, Lisbon Left Hand Club, the Lisbon United Methodist Church, McDonald's, Polly's, and the Railroad Restaurant. And renewal itinerant vendor and vitulers license for Hoagie's Hot Dogs, renewal 12-month mass gathering permit for the Riverside Flea Market, and the minutes of May 3rd, 2011.
So move.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? And opposed?
Order passed, 7-0.
All right, I've had a request to move the school budget adoption up front of the head of the other items so that people from the school don't have to hang around here through the rest of our meeting. So unless council has any objection to that, we can move that up. All right, I don't see any objection from council on that, so we will move that item to the first.
Order 2011-75 through 91, the 2011-12 school budget adoption of warrant Articles 1 through 17. Article 1, student and staff support, to see what sum the council will authorize the Lisbon School Department to expend for student and staff support, guidance, health, library, improvement of instruction, curriculum coordinator, technology system administrator, technology funds, and curriculum fund. Recommendation, $969,594.
Make a motion to accept for discussion.
I'll second that.
Okay, do I have any discussion from council?
I just have a question. Do we have an advisory board opinion?
No, we don't.
Do we
They have
need
not.
one
We
in order
should.
to?
We should have an advisory board opinion, but they have not they gave us one on our budget, but they have not given us one on the school budget yet. Is the chair here?
Is the chair of the board here? No?
Vice chair.
Vice chair is here?
We do have 4 people, so we can walk off.
Okay. Sure, if you could give us some kind of a recommendation, would be helpful. I don't know how we're feeling here.
I don't think we're prepared. Is there a full copy of the budget we could at least look at?
It's May 3rd, right, Cap?
Yes, but you might, Don, you want to see that part.
Oh, yeah. Yep, that's the one. Can.
Looks like it's
Okay.
gonna be moved.
I guess we'll have to move that back to the later spot in our agenda and give them a few minutes to try to come up with some kind of a recommendation there. I'd be surprised if they said anything other than yes, but you never know. You can't tell them how to vote.
Hoping they would just tell us yes.
I think the school came in with a 0%, no increase from what I understand, so I don't see why there would be a desire to cut them any further, but you never know. Yes, go ahead, Roger.
I do think it's a good thing to allow the advisory board their opinion. In the past, we've promoted trying to be more aware of that, and by not doing it would be an injustice to the board.
All right, so going back to the original order of items then, Twyla, what's the next thing?
Order 2011-69, the DMP pump station, pump replacement.
This deals with the sewer budget, and Ryan Layton will address it.
Good evening. As part of the 2010-11 capital budget for the sewer department, we had planned to replace the second pump at the D&B pump station.
Where's DMB pump station?
Sorry, Farwell Mill, behind the Farwell Mill, basically between the mill and Napa. It's one of the big 3 pump stations that we have in the system. The pump that we're replacing is 23 years old and is originally rated at 750 gallons a minute. Don't believe it's even pumping at that capacity now. And the new pump that we would like to install is a 925 gallon a minute pump, which is, we'd already installed one of them at this station. This would just bring it up, so we have 2 new pumps in the station. And the budget has almost $40,000 in the capital line, and this is $28,566. It's a proposal from Stevens Electric and Pump Service.
Mark?
Oh, sorry, I can see a mic, go ahead.
Chairman, I just want to make sure, and I don't know the exact wording of our purchasing policy. Can we do this without putting it out to bid? Where the value's there. I know we've used these people before, so I know there's a vested interest in doing that. And I'm sure the price is fairly reasonable or consistent to the last number.
Yes. The thing you run into with these specialty type stuff is that you can only buy from certain vendors. We did speak with the flight rep that's responsible for our region, and the pump price itself is $24,000, so we're looking at $4,500 for the installation costs, which includes removal of the old pump and rail system as well as installation of the new one and changing the piping size to match the new pump. So the price of the pump is the price of the pump pretty much. We have other alternatives we can look at as far as installation, but our experience is these folks are the best in the business in terms of that.
I just want to make sure via our purchasing policy that we have the authority to go doing a bid procedure and allow us to go authorize this.
Well, if they're looking for a specific type of pump, and this is, as you said, a specialty item, I couldn't quote the purchase policy on something like that, but I think this is the pump they're looking for. This is the company that carries it for this region. You're looking at the cost, no matter where you go, it's going to be approximately $24,000, and what you're really looking at, the difference is, like Ryan said, is labor installation,
right.
and these people do all the work in this region.
They're the ones that installed the $48,000 pump that we bought from Smith & Lovelace for the Upland Road pump station replacement that we did. I mean, they're the ones that have basically installed all our new pumps. We have looked for other local vendors to do installations, and no one's really interested in playing in the septic, the sewer.
Don't know why. Chair?
Go ahead, Fern.
Now, this pump is identical to the one that's there. So as far as for maintenance and parts and the idea of ability to repair, it's actually more cost-effective long-term to have 2 identical pumps than actually having a second pump, even if it was a little bit.
Well, and then and quite honestly, the one that we're replacing now, the parts are extremely difficult to get. We've had to repair it in the past, and there's quite a long lead time. And right now, the pump we have in service is the one that's handling majority of the load. It's just when we have a lot of heavy rain in the spring during snow melt that the old pump, if you will, kicks in to help with the higher flows. But if the new pump was to fail, we'd be in a problem.
You'd use the term, but it wouldn't work very well. The other question I had is there any other capital projects that we see coming up this year that would actually go over and beyond what we have for remaining balance, or is this the biggest project you have?
No, we have this. We have one more pump that we intend to replace as part of the budget at the Headworks building at the treatment plant itself to handle the volume of septage that we've been receiving, but we're looking at about $10,000 or less for that pump installation, so it's the budget can handle.
Still within budget?
Yep.
Question.
Go ahead, Laura.
And this quote is still good since it's almost
Yeah.
6-7 weeks out from it?
Yeah, we called them to make sure they didn't need to fax us a new one.
If it is a specialty pump, wouldn't that, and we put it out to bid, it's gonna kinda eliminate a lot of the bidders automatically?
No.
So if we just put it out to bid, wouldn't that eliminate the possibility of any questions that we didn't go out to bid?
How long would it take to put it out to bid? Be the time.
Have it back for the next meeting if that's what you want to do.
I mean, I always prefer to put stuff out to bid, just it looks better for the public and it gives more people a chance to bid on it.
Just with the idea of the bid is the same compatible pump that we have, model, make,
Yep.
and everything as the other one there to make sure they are compatible and not have two different type
Right.
pumps, and it'd be nice to compare apples to apples, that's
Right,
all.
you don't want something that's below spec. Anything further from council? All right,
All right,
Brian.
thank
all
you.
right, thank you. Next item, Twyla?
Order 2011-70, disposition of 46 Frost Hill Avenue.
This is a piece of property that the town has acquired through tax foreclosure. The property was abandoned. It's taken us a while to bring this forward because there was a question on who actually had first rights to it. And we dealt with searching the banks who we thought had an interest in it, and we've been in this through legal counsel, and we own the property. So it's a piece of property that's got a house on it that really, I had Mike, supposed to go out today, Mike Cody, to make sure it's a safe building. We're hearing it doesn't look like a very safe building, but it's time we got rid of this. What we have here and why we included our disposition policy for town-owned real estate is you have two abutters who are interested in purchasing this. One of them happens to be a counselor and one is on the other side. My question to this council, is this something that you in your policy, you have the ability to sell it to abutters who may have an interest in it and come up with a price, or would you prefer to put this out to bid?
How does council feel on that? Go ahead, Roger.
I feel anything that we purchase or sell should go out to bid to make it fair to the community or to anybody that would like to. Whether it's work, purchasing equipment or whatever, I think should go out to bid.
You have in your Lisbon code, under disposition, it is section 2092-8, methods of disposal. One of them happens to be E, abutter sale. The town council may approve the property to an abutter without a bid process, where the nature of the property is such that only an abutter would have an interest in acquiring that property. So that's,
So is this property something that only an abutter would have an interest in acquiring, or would it be something that someone could have a house on and use for its own piece of land?
it's a pretty small parcel. Let's see, it's got a frontage of 155 feet and a depth of 237 feet.
It's bigger than my property.
There's going to be some line disputes, I'm pretty sure. The house has no value from what we have seen. It needs to be taken down. We've had issues with it over the winter with people in there. The septic system in the back has collapsed, and we had to go in and fill it with gravel to prevent anybody from getting hurt.
Still should go out to bid. It's got $108,000 value. Is that right?
Let's see.
That's what it says, that's with the building, I mean.
Right.
That's with the building, but I
But the
don't
fact,
think the building has any value.
no, but it still should go out to bid to the people. And if nobody's interested, and the only one that would be interested is an abutter, then the abutters will have the opportunity to purchase it.
Mike, did you have a comment? I saw your hand up.
Well, I mean, we have a policy that states options that we have available to it. If we have two abutters interested in it, I say let them go fight for it.
That you mean put out to bid, or what are you saying?
No, I'd let the two bidders fight it out. I mean, if they're both interested in it, they're both gonna have to put in a proposal as to what they feel they're willing to pay for it.
But why lock out the general public?
I mean, because we have a policy that says if abutters have a vested interest in the policy. I mean, if we wanted to change the policy and take that statement out, then
Well, my reading of it there is that it says where the nature of the property is such that only an abutter would have an interest. So if it's something that previously had a house on it, it seems like it could be of interest to someone else.
I say
So-
we should put it out to bid.
My feeling is we should put it out to bid, and if the abutters are the only people that bid on it, then they wouldn't have to compete with anyone, but if somebody else wants to put it in, they can bid for it too.
well, I guess my only other concern would be is if we think there's gonna be issues with property line disputes, what liability is that with us, for us to go validate the property lines in order for us to put it out to bid. If I've got two abutters who are not concerned with those property lines because one of the two of them are gonna get the property, it certainly will save the town funds by not having to go revalidate a survey and everything else to validate that, so.
So what you're saying is that if we weren't pushing to put this out to bid, we would be concealing information from the rest of the council that there may be questions about abutting property lines. Because when we first mentioned putting this out to bid, there was nothing mentioned about property line.
I believe
It
the
was.
town manager informed us in his
You did, yes, you
brief
did.
that
Well,
there would be a potential issue with property line
well,
alignment. So, I mean, I took that as,
I think we should put it out to bid.
so, I mean, that's just my 2 cents.
Any other comments from council? Go ahead, Lori.
Do we have specifics as to what the property line issues are?
I don't, no, just that there's a question, there has not been a survey done, there's a question on where the lines are. And the abutter, one of the abutters thought that if they had the opportunity to purchase this, this would just clean that up without any issues.
Roughly how much would it cost to do a survey? Any idea?
I have no idea.
Okay. Anything else from council on that? Public? Mr. Fillmore?
I have a couple, I'm Larry Fillmore from Lisbon. I have a couple questions on this. What date did the town purchase this property?
We acquired it through tax foreclosure.
I understood that, but I asked you what the date was that we acquired it.
I don't have the specific date in front of me.
The reason that I asked that question was that I went to the town office today and asked who owned the property. And they gave me a couple's name. They looked it up on the town computer, and the town assessor has this listed to a couple. Now, I don't know if the town records are wrong. I don't know if the information you're putting out to the council is wrong, but there is a great discrepancy in as far as what the town has listed in its own computer as to the owner of the property and what has been said here this evening. Before we go deliberating over how we're going to sell some property, we should make sure that the records are straight within the town limits here. The other thing is, Mrs. Fitzgerald, about what, last meeting or the meeting before, brought up some tax issues on assessing. And she gave the paperwork to Mr. Van Tynen, and now the town people no longer have access to assessing. You can't look up anything on the internet. You have to come in here to look at what we already had access for before, and now we don't have access to.
Okay, I understand that, Mr. Fillmore, but that's not really pertinent to the exact question here that we're dealing with.
Fine. Okay, Mark. The other thing that I had was, in your exception to the bid process, said something about only abutters have, want the property. Well, sitting there, nobody knows what the public wants in their minds. Somebody may want that property for a particular thing, and by not putting it out for the public, you just sidestep them. And I think that was the reason that the exception was put in there, was it so everybody had a fair shake at this. I'm only saying, everybody has a right to bid. Let the abutters bid.
Thank you. Anything further from the public? Go ahead.
Dorothy Fitzgerald, resident of Lisbon Falls. When the abutting property to the left went out for bid, all there was this tiny, tiny legal notice in the Sun Journal in the fine print that you need a magnifying glass to read. So if this does go out to bid, I would hope that you would at least do a decent size advertising so that you can get some decent bids for it, so that people are aware that it is available for bid and have the opportunity to bid on it.
Thank you.
I want more advertising and better advertising.
Mark?
Yes.
Because I'm going to exclude myself. Can I actually
Right.
speak behind on this?
Yes, I'll allow you to speak.
Sure. Yeah.
You want to take the podium?
Zach. Brian La Rochelle, Main Street. I actually am one of the butters, and whether it goes out to bid, I don't think any of the butters mind. The biggest concern I think the butters have is this is actually a property now that the windows are busted out, the doors are open, the kids are partying regularly on weekends. The basement has 3 to 4 feet of water in at this point in time. The abutter on the other side of the property, this property is literally within 5 or 6 feet of his property line. There's a gentleman across the street that's trying to sell his property that this is definitely not actually aiding and selling this property. And if it does go out to bid, I would wish that the town council would consider the idea of putting a strict time limit on the idea of removal of the property, if that, so be it, the idea of repair or removal within a very short time frame for safety-wise. The septic system that did cave in was in the driveway. Last year, if anybody drove down Frost Hill Avenue, the lawn was probably 3 to 4 feet on average height. It definitely looked like the abandoned old spooky house that sat on a road. So it is kind of diminishing the value of everybody in that property. And if you look to the left or the right, there's very nice homes. So I mean, I would ask if it is going to go out to bid, which again I have no problem with that. The limitations of the bid would that actually the house would have to be removed or demolished within a short period of time, or whatever would need to be. But I mean, I know that as the other butters in the neighborhood, they would like to see something done fairly quickly, and the town's had multiple complaints this over the last couple of years, only because of the condition of the property and the idea that it's wide open at this point in time.
Yes, go ahead.
Where one of our fellow councilors is in the butter of the property, by not putting this out to bid, it would give some people the question in their mind, did he get the opportunity to bid on this or to buy this just because he's a councilor? And I think that would be unfair to Mr. La Rochelle. I think by putting it out to bid, that removes all doubt to anybody in town that may be thinking something of this nature was taking place.
Steve, would it be possible to have like the fire department come in and burn this building if it's a nuisance building? It's on public land that we own. I know. No, okay. All right, that's off the table then.
Can I just say something? What I think is being missed is that in this section E, it does say, under the abutter sale, the second part of it is where the nature of the property is such that only an abutter would have an interest in acquiring the property. This is 100 by 150 lot approximately and a limited residential. And I think that if the property line issues were resolved and the house was removed, that somebody within that zone would have interest. They could rebuild a structure there. So I think that the way that this reads is that there could be other people that may have an interest in it. I think the only right thing to do is to put it out to bid.
I agree with that. We have a motion or,
I'd like to make a motion that this piece of property on 46 Frost Hill Avenue be put out to bid for sale, and we could put stipulations in it to remove the building or to do something to make it a little better for the abutting or the neighbors in the vicinity, so that to clean it up.
I'll second that.
any discussion from council on that? Dot, do you have something you want to say?
My question and comment is, if the town has owned this property, I don't know for how long, and the town has not secured it, so that vandalism, that people can't get in and vandalize it, and where is our police department? They're talking at the water department meeting about the former, I know it's not pertinent to this, but the former Dragon property was used as a junkyard, et cetera, and
Okay, Doc,
parties.
okay, Doc, could you move along? And
I just feel that, why did not the town secure the property if you owned it? Because
All
it
right,
was
thank
a
you, Dot.
liability
Thank
to
you,
the
Dot.
town.
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, Steve, can you, in our packet, right, on this sheet here, there's an account note. I'm not sure I know what it means, but the note states that Chapter 7 bankruptcy was filed in November of 2008, was discharged in February of 2009. I believe in June of 2010, it was sent out for foreclosure, and then it was remailed again on 12/29 of 2010 for foreclosure. I believe we recently acquired the property in 2010.
Okay.
For those who are...
There's been-
And I'm only reading the account note
Yeah.
that came out with the paperwork.
There's been some detective work that had to be done to make sure we own the property, and we've been through our legal counsel to make sure everything is done properly. So this is why it's before you now, not back in January.
Okay.
We have a
So,
motion. We have a motion.
So we have a
and second.
motion, and we've had discussion. All those in favor? And opposed? And abstaining is Fern. All right.
701, vote passed.
6-0.
Six, yes,
601.
right. 601, vote passed.
Next item, Twyla?
Did you want to
Wanna-
move to the school
Are they,
department at this point?
do we have a,
They're back.
are they back? Okay, well, we can go right to the school then, and so we'll move to that item.
You have on the floor a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
did we
sir.
ask for an opinion from the advisory board first before
All right,
we
absolutely.
go forward?
Yep.
How would you like the opinion? Article by article, or what?
Do you have split decisions, or how would you like
Are
to?
they all yeses
Are they all
or
yes
are
or
they-
no, or is there divisions?
Sure, yeses and
I'm
nos?
not at liberty to say that.
Okay, well then the article by article.
Go out.
I'll give you what I wrote and what we said. The advisory board recommends by a vote of 4 in favor, none opposed, that each article of the 2011-12 school budget be approved and sent to the people of Lisbon for affirmation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Green, did you have something you wanted to say before we take a vote? I don't know. Okay.
I'm just here
Okay, I just want to make sure you want stepping up to say anything. Okay. So Twyla, you can take it away.
Okay, the article on the floor was made, but the motion was made by Counselor Bowie, seconded by Counselor LaRochelle, to recommend for Article 1, $969,594.
Any discussion from council on that? Okay. Do I have a motion?
This
There
would be
is
a
a
vote by
motion.
roll call.
This is by roll call, all right, sorry. Okay. So we need a vote now?
Are you ready?
I believe
Okay.
so.
Counselor Bowie,
Yay.
Counselor Bickford,
Yay.
Counselor Cody,
Yay.
Counselor LaRochelle,
Yes.
Counselor Lunt,
Yay.
Counselor Mason,
Yes.
and Counselor Pomelo.
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
Next item?
Article 2, System Administration. To see what sum the council will authorize the Lisbon School Department to expend for system administration, school committee, and superintendent. Recommended, $831.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Okay, go for the roll call.
Counselor Bowie,
Yay.
Counselor Bickford,
Yay.
Counselor Cody,
Yay.
Counselor LaRochelle,
Yes.
Counselor Lunt,
Yes.
Counselor Mason,
Yes.
Counselor Pomelo.
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
Next item?
Article 3, School Administration, to see what sum the council will authorize the school department to expend for school administration, which is principals. Recommendation, $720,739.
So moved?
Seconded.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call.
Counselor Bowie,
Yay.
Counselor Bickford,
Yay.
Counselor Cody,
Yay.
Counselor LaRochelle,
Yes.
Counselor Lunt,
Yay.
Counselor Mason,
Yes.
Counselor Pomelo.
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
Next item?
Article 4, Facilities Maintenance, to see what sum the council will authorize the Lisbon School Department to expend for facilities maintenance, operation and maintenance. Recommendation, $1,490,497.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to the roll call.
Counselor Pomelo,
Yes.
Counselor Mason,
Yes.
Counselor Lunt,
Yes.
Counselor LaRochelle,
Yes.
Counselor Cody,
Yes.
Counselor Bickford,
Yes.
Counselor Bowie.
Yay.
7 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
Next item?
Article 5, Transportation and Buses, to see what sum the council will authorize the Lisbon School Department to expend for transportation and buses. Recommendation, $552,341.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call?
Counselor Pomelo?
Yes.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Cody?
Yes.
Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
Counselor Bowe?
Yay.
7 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
Next article?
Article 6, all other expenditures, school nutrition, to see what sum the council will authorize the Lisbon School Department to expend for all other expenditures under school nutrition. Recommendation, $327,744.
So move.
Seconded.
Any discussion? All right, roll call?
Counselor Pomelo?
Yes.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Cody?
Yes.
Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
Counselor Bowe?
Yay.
7 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
Next article?
Article 7, debt service and other commitments, to see what sum the council will authorize the Lisbon School Department to expend for debt service. Recommendation, $1,079,769.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, go to the roll call?
Counselor Bowe?
Yay.
Counselor Bickford?
Yay.
Counselor Cody?
Yay.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yay.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
Counselor Pomelo?
Yes.
7 yeses, 0 nays, order passed.
Next article?
Article 8, regular instruction, elementary, secondary, gifted, and talented, to see what sum the council will authorize the school department to expend for regular instruction, elementary, secondary, gifted, and talented, English as a second language, alternative education. Recommendation, $5,694,588.
So move.
Seconded.
Any discussion? All right, the roll call?
Counselor Cody?
Yay.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
Counselor Pomelo?
Yes.
Counselor Bowe?
Yay.
Counselor Bickford?
Yay.
7 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
Next article?
Article 9, special education, to see what sum the council will authorize the Lisbon School Department to expend for special education. Recommendation, $2,005,000, $5,410.
So move.
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, roll call?
Counselor Cody?
Yay.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
Counselor Pomelo?
Yes.
Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
And Counselor Bowe?
Yay.
7 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
And next article?
Article 10, other instruction, co-curricular, to see what sum the council will authorize the Lisbon School Department to expend for other instruction, co-curricular. Recommendation, $359,489.
So moved.
Seconded.
All right, roll call?
Counselor Bowe?
Yay.
Counselor Bickford?
Yay.
Counselor Cody?
Yay.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yay.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
Counselor Pomelo?
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
Next article?
Article 11, public funding of K through 12. To see what sum the council will authorize the Lisbon School Department to appropriate for the total cost of funding public education from kindergarten to grade 12 as described in the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act. Recommended, $12,721,715. And to see what sum the council will raise as the town's contribution to the total cost of funding public education from kindergarten to grade 12, as described in the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act in accordance with the Maine Revised Statutes, Title 20A, Section 15688. Recommended amount, $4,702,739.
So move.
Seconded.
All right, roll call?
Counselor Pomelo?
Yes.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Cody?
Yes.
Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
Counselor Bowe?
Yay.
7 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
Next article?
Article 12, Debt Service. To see what sum the council will authorize the Lisbon School Department to raise and appropriate for the annual payments on debt service previously approved by the legislative body for non-state funded school construction projects, non-state funded portions of school construction projects, and minor capital projects. In addition to the funds appropriated as the local share of the council will authorize the Lisbon School Department's unit's contribution to the total cost of funding public education from kindergarten to grade 12. Recommendation, $106,204.
So moved.
Seconded.
All right, roll call?
Counselor Bowie?
Yay.
Counselor Bickford?
Yay.
Counselor Cody?
Yay.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
Counselor Pomelo?
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
Next article?
Article 13, funds exceeding the state's essential programs and services allocation model. To see what sum the council will authorize the Lisbon School Department to raise and appropriate for in additional local funds, recommended $368,228, which exceeds the state's essential programs and services allocation model by $80,548, as required to fund the budget recommended by the school committee. The school committee recommends $368,228 for additional local funds and gives the following reason for exceeding the state's essential programs and services funding model by $80,548. The Lisbon School Department
Move
is...
the reading.
Second that.
All those in favor of moving the reading?
Was that 7-0 yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Recommended for Article 13, $368,228.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to the roll call.
Counselor Bowie?
Yay.
Counselor Bickford?
Yay.
Counselor Cody?
Yay.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yay.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
And Counselor Pomelo?
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
Next article?
Article 14, to see what sum the council will authorize the Lisbon School Committee to expend for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2011 and ending June 30th, 2012, from the town's contribution to the total cost of funding public education from
Move the reading.
kindergarten. Roger. All those in favor? 7-0. All right.
All right.
Recommended for Article 14, which is to authorize a sum to expend for the fiscal year 2011 and 12, is $13,606,002.
So moved.
Seconded.
All right, roll call?
Counselor Bowie?
Yay.
Counselor Bickford?
Yay.
Counselor Cody?
Yay.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yay.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
Counselor Pomelo?
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
Next article?
Article 15, to authorize appropriations of funds for adult education and raise funds as a local share. To see if the council will authorize the Lisbon School Department to appropriate $137,329 for adult education and to raise $98,610 as a local share with authorization to expend any additional incidental or miscellaneous receipts in the interest and for the well-being of the adult ed program. Recommended, $137,329.
So moved.
Seconded.
All right, seeing no discussion, we'll move to the roll call.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
Counselor Pomelo?
Yes.
Counselor Cody?
Yes.
Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
Counselor Bowie?
Yay.
7 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
Next article?
Article 16, authorization to expend funds for adult education. To see what sum the council will authorize the Lisbon School Department to expend for adult ed. Recommendation, $152,064.
So moved.
Seconded.
Roll call?
Counselor Bowie?
Yay.
Counselor Bickford?
Yay.
Counselor Cody?
Yay.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yay.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
Counselor Pomelo?
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
And I believe the last article?
Article 17, authorization to expend federal stabilization funds. In addition to the amounts approved in the preceding articles, shall the council authorize the school committee to expend federal stabilization funds and such other funds as may be received from federal and state grants or programs or other sources during the fiscal year for school purposes, provided that such grants, programs, and other sources do not require the expenditure of other funds not previously appropriated.
So moved.
Seconded.
Do you have an amount? Or there's no amount for this? Okay.
No,
Just
'cause I
allowing
don't
them
think we
to,
know the federal funds.
All right, thanks.
Just we authorize them to spend grants if they get any.
Okay.
All right. Any discussion on that? All right, roll call?
Counselor Cody?
Yes.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Bowie?
Yay?
Counselor Bickford?
Yay.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
Counselor Pomelo?
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays. Order passed.
Thank you. Good job.
Hey, Roger?
I'd like to just let it be known that I think the school board and Mr. Green did an outstanding job under very, very difficult times.
Thank you very much.
We realize that it hurt. We know that it hurt, but we had no choice, and we certainly appreciate the good job and the professional job this year. Outstanding. And I thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
All right, now we'll go back to where we were in the order before that.
Order 2011-71, disposition of 385 Lisbon Street.
This is a property that currently belongs to the Lisbon Emergency. They are in the process of eventually moving out once their building that they purchased has all the additions put in. Once they move out, this property reverts back to the community, or to the town. The building that is on it, it is unsafe. That's one of the reasons they're moving out. Again, this is a property I had on a butter ask and inquire if that was going to, when it was going up for sale, and of course I could not tell her that because we're waiting for the emergency to move out. But what would the council's desire be on this property? We are under the understanding it needs to be torn down, so we will have a piece of property. I think there's only one abutter on that. Do you want to go through the same process? We'll just put this out to bid, or do you want to I'll put together a price and see if the abutter is interested.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Mike.
what's the zoning here?
That's residential. It's
So it's not, I
Not
thought,
village zoning?
I thought that's village
gotta
zoning,
be.
so there could be businesses in that area.
I'd have to look at the zoning map. I'm not sure.
That's what it says on the card. It says a fee for village.
Yeah, so I thought we did it when I was on the planning board. Change that to village zoning.
But I believe if it's zoned for businesses, I think we definitely should put it out to bid.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yes, go ahead, Roger.
Could we get, on issues of this nature, I think that we ought to start being as consistently doing things the way that when a building property comes up, put it out to bid, make it fair to everybody, and be consistent. Don't change or go one way, or try to stay consistent so the people know that if a piece of property is coming up, it will be going out to bid. That way there, it'll take out the confusion for the people in the town and for us in the future.
I agree, and I think we could put it on the website too to advertise it, since that won't cost us anything extra.
Well, I guess I would, I understand your point, Roger, and I don't necessarily disagree with it, but I think you'll run into situations within the town where you may obtain a piece of property that's really not buildable on, right, or meets all the requirements necessary. And in those cases, you may want to exercise that abutter clause in your policy at that point in time, because it may not be worth the time and effort of staff and the dollars you would expend to go through an appraisal process and everything and publicize to have it go out to through a bid process. So I think you have to look at each one individually, and I think the responsibility lies with council to be as consistent as possible when going through that. But I think we have to understand the situation of the property or to make that judgment.
Point well taken, Mike, and I agree that there will be opportunities and it will come up that we probably would be better served to the community to do what you're speaking of. But generally speaking, I think we should try to be as consistently doing things as we can to kind of give people that the direction we're going is trying to be fair to everybody.
And I totally agree with that, but to follow up on what Mike said, there may be times when we want to keep the property for the use of the town.
Right.
That may be certainly a time we may not want to dispose of everything automatically by sale once we get it if something's useful. So anything further from council?
So when that becomes available, I'll put it out to bid.
I'd
Okay.
like to go with that.
Chairperson Lunt?
Yes, go ahead.
Just a quick question with a manual this big of policies coming from the school committee. I just think it would behoove the board to possibly review and/or add extra clauses within your own policies. That way it remains consistent and not, as board members come and go, changes of opinions, it may just stabilize discussion a little bit better. That would be just a suggestion.
Thank you. Okay, next item, Toilet.
Order 2011-72, mileage reimbursement rate.
We visit this time to time when the gas prices continue to go up and down. Our current rate is 48 cents a mile we pay. Some of the employees have brought it to our attention that the IRS rates are up to 51 cents. In order for us to change it, it has to come before the council. If you do change it, my recommendation would be not to change it until we get into our new budget year, not to do it so it would backlog on some of our already paid out or ones that are requesting payment.
Do we have the money in the budget to do that?
You will for the upcoming
The
budget,
upcoming year,
but
okay.
you don't necessarily
year.
have it for this budget.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go ahead, Mike.
do we have an idea of how much travel we have to do? I mean, we have a number of vehicles available to municipal employees, right? For traveling around and stuff like that. I know it's probably not for everybody. We don't have enough for everybody, but I'm just wondering if we're effectively utilizing the existing town vehicles for transportation.
There are very few employees who actually come before us to look for or request mileage reimbursement. Most are like the police, fire, public works use the vehicles for the town. The town clerk, finance director, code enforcement use their own vehicles. So it depends on the, we don't have a huge amount of money that we pay out for that. Mostly, I would say assessing and code enforcement are the two they really put the miles on for what their job requires.
Do you have, excuse me.
That's all right.
Do you have a figure of what we are looking at with this increase?
I don't, off the top of my head. We're figuring our mileage based on what the current cost of gas is. And I think we are up to $4 a gallon, what we expect to pay for our municipal vehicles. But I don't have I'd have to go back and go through the whole budget and take a look and what we've budgeted for each department for mileage.
Sorry, go ahead.
Can I make a recommendation that we move this to the last meeting that we have in in June?
First meeting in
Since
June.
it won't be starting or going into effect until July 1st, and at such time, if we could have the amount of money that we're looking, an estimate of the amount of money that we would be spending, so that we can determine if 48 cents is the correct amount that we want to assign. Maybe do some sort of a spreadsheet that has, 45, 46, 47, 48, cents up to the limit.
All right. I think we can table that until our next meeting then, if you're agreeable to that. Okay. Okay, next item?
2011-73, Personnel Policy Amendment, Section 90, 15.5, pay periods.
In our personnel policy, it's written that we would pay our employees on a weekly basis. We have recommended to the council and updated the employees that we're looking to go to a bi-weekly. There's some cost savings in that. And with the changes that we're making in payroll, we think it will be beneficial. In order for us to do that, the council needs to take a vote and to amend the policy that we can go to a bi-weekly payroll.
Go ahead, Mike.
I'd like to suggest that we also maybe add something in there on the timing to, I'm not sure how to word this, but when somebody's pay is in error, there should be a duration of time that has to be corrected. It's within 24 hours if their pay was incorrectly calculated or whatever. I know we do that at BIW, there's other businesses that do that, so especially when you're changing how people get paid and they're going through the culture process, I think if we make mistakes, we need to rectify them immediately within that same pay cycle than
Because you could,
something a week later or 2 weeks later in their next paycheck. So I think
What do
we
you use
should
a BIW? What is the time?
specify.
24 hours.
24 hours.
We could do the same thing.
Okay.
Only because it puts people in a real hard situation if there was an error made and they get a 24-cent paycheck and they gotta wait a month to get their paycheck.
Yeah.
You know, and it can happen, believe me, it's happened to us. We know, you know, this does happen. And then you're stuck waiting 2 weeks before you get another, you know, that hurts.
Laurie?
Does it have to be specific enough to say that if the error is on the part of the payroll department?
Right.
Because, I mean, some places do put in there that if the error's on the part of the employee because they didn't punch or they didn't turn in their pay sheets.
I'm fine with that. I mean, if the records don't show that the value should be there, I mean, you have the ownership as an employee to prove that your pay
Correct.
was incorrect. So if you can prove that your pay was incorrect, I'm saying that should be turned around within the timely fashion. If you can't prove it, that it's incorrect, then
I think that we do need to spell out the language then as to how quickly the turnaround time's going to be depending on whose error it is.
I mean, I think if the town makes the error, it should be within 24 hours.
Right.
Yep.
It's a
Anything
town
else?
error.
Or if it's an overtime issue, they get missed out, you know,
Right, they
you
didn't
know,
get their overtime pay, they still should
they
get
still
that.
should get that.
Correct.
Anything else from council on this item? Anything from the public? All right, so do we want to take a vote, or do we want to direct you to go back
me
to?
to go back?
I
Why
think
don't
we'll
you
direct you to go
just
back and.
bring back
We'll-
language?
we'll-
And I'll come
We'll
back
table
to
this
you.
until our next meeting, you go back and
Pick
tweak
up
it.
some language.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. And the next item would be the school budget, or our budget, I believe. But I've had several counselors approach me and say that we should table this until our next meeting. And unless the council wants to disagree with me, I'm going to go ahead and say we should table this. Any disagreement on that? And we can work on our budget for another 3 weeks, make sure we get it exactly right, because I don't want anything wrong after last year.
We'll bring it back June 7th.
June 7th, that's good with me, unless anyone has any objections to that.
Mr. Chairman, are we
Yes.
going to have an opportunity to have some additional discussion
We have a
Yeah.
between
meeting
that
next
time
Tuesday.
frame?
We have a meeting next Tuesday, and if we need another workshop, we can have another workshop before then, since we have,
Because I'd
2 weeks in
like to
between.
review some of the stuff that was passed out at the last meeting and
Exactly.
go over that and
We'll get you some updated sheets as well, with some of the changes that was recommended.
sorry to disappoint all the people at home and in the audience that came out to see our exciting municipal vote, but we want to make sure we get it exactly right. All right, next item, Twyla?
Is under other business, Lisbon Emergency Award presentation.
Who's presenting that?
Emergency, as requested to be on the agenda to make some presentations. It's all yours.
Hi, I'm Sean Mateer. First of all, I'd like to thank the town council for having us here for this short spot. And I'd like to also thank the public for being here. Some members of family that the person's being honored, the family members are here. Chief Brooks, Chief Gallipo, Chief Gamache from Lisbon Emergency. And we also have a representative from Tri-County EMS, the coordinator of Tri-County EMS, Joanne LeBrun, is also here. There's nobody here from the state or from Maine Community Heart or Maine Heart Safe Community, but we're going to kind of fill in for those spots.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Could these people come in from the hall and line up
Yeah,
so
they
they
can all
can be
come in.
participating?
They can all come in.
I think our Senator Garrett Mason is here. I did see him in the hall.
There he is.
There he is.
Thank you. I just want to start out by saying that, you all see the commercial for hair and everything. Well, it's the same way in communities, and I'm not just a hair club, member, I'm also a client, but I was also saved really by the link of survival when I had my accident in Booth Bay Harbor. And it's really no coincidence that the young man that we're honoring here tonight has quite a history as far as his family history. His uncle's a firefighter, his father's a firefighter, his brother's a firefighter. The family name pretty much speaks for itself. That said, what really makes a community strong, and that's why really we're recognizing this young man here tonight, what makes a community strong is really the links that we have in place from the time something happens, especially something like cardiac arrest, till the time you get to the hospital. And as you know, there are many links that have to be really tight for that person to really survive. And one of them, obviously, is oxygen levels. So when a person goes down, it's been shown that if you can get to them, used to be, mouth to mouth was the big thing to start. Now they're saying that really compressions are the most important things to do. And why you're doing compressions is because the heart is fibrillating, it's not really pumping. And so by doing compressions, you can actually get oxygen up to the brain, and brain survival, of course, is the key to this all. That said, what they've also found is that electricity, when that heart is fibrillating and it's not really pumping, that electricity is one of the things that really can get it out of that rhythm, get it into a normal rhythm, get it pumping blood, get the brain circulating with oxygen. That said, this young man actually had a dream way before any of this ever occurred that maybe we should have AEDs in the school system. So what he did with the help of his grandfather, and his grandfather has currently passed away, but what he did with the help of his grandfather is to raise money enough to have AEDs put into all 3 of the school systems in Lisbon Falls. And we have a plaque that we'd like to present, and I'd like to call up here Ryan Robital and his family if they'd like to come up. In special recognition of Brian Robital, junior firefighter, for your efforts to improve survival and recovery associated with cardiac arrest by establishing the AED project in memory of Robert Robital, your collaboration with Lisbon Fire, Lisbon Emergency, Lisbon Police, and the Lisbon School Department to install automated external defibrillators in all district schools is an important step towards saving lives in your community and is to be highly commended. Your dedication to improving the cardiovascular chain of survival in your community is deeply appreciated by all of us, for sure, and certainly by Maine EMS, the Maine Center for Disease Control for Cardiovascular Health, and your fellow emergency response providers. Moreover, we want to thank him from the community, and so I present this as a vital contributor to the Maine Heart Safe Community Award to Ryan Robital.
Congratulations from the town council, too. Next item, Twyla?
Is the finance director's report.
Congratulations. No problem, that's a tough act to follow.
That's great.
Okay. All right, so I believe you all have your April packets for information in front of you.
I got it somewhere.
Starting with revenues, we're looking, excise tax is approximately 77% collected. Year to date, it's looking like we'll be under collected to budget by around $50,000. However, compared to last year at this time, we've only taken in about $7,000 less. In order to meet our current budget, we would have to bring in $141,000 per remaining month. And as I've said the last couple months, even though collections have increased beginning back in March, historically we have not collected over $130,000 in either of the remaining months. State revenue sharing is 80% collected. We had another $39,000 that came in during April. To achieve our budget of $750,000, we would need to average $73,000 for each remaining month. That's not completely out of the ordinary, but we will continue to monitor this through the remainder of the year.
And now, is that money that, I mean, that's money that's kind of owed to us, right, that the state?
State revenue sharing, yes.
Right, so we should get it all.
Yeah,
right?
we should,
get it.
absolutely.
We might get it on June 30th, but.
Right. In response to last month, you had asked Mike about
our counselor, Bowie, about miscellaneous state revenue. That was just a miscoding. That was related to tax lien write-offs. I think I have a note here. And so it was a misclassification, so that's been corrected. And it was corrected prior to my April report, which is why I didn't notice it on the March one. So that was corrected in the month of April. The amount that's remaining in miscellaneous state revenue primarily relates to a final FEMA payment from the severe weather in 2008. So. The transfer station brought in another $9,000 for the month of April, bringing us to an 84% collection. And with Parks and Recreation, we are over 115% collected. The rec department brought in another $1,400 in the before-after-school care programs, as well as another $1,400 for the winter-spring swim programs. And as of April 30th, we are 94% collected on our total tax commitment, which is right about where we were last year at that point. So as a reminder, to the remaining citizens who have not paid their taxes as of yet, interest will be applied to their account after June 30th. So just want to get that out there.
Got a couple of questions?
Absolutely. I was just going to say, so if you have any questions for me, I will do my best to answer.
When will we bill for the rest of the Sabatis?
That will be done before June 30th. It will probably be done, I'll talk with Chief Brooks and we'll get that done within the next 2 months.
And my other question is on general assistance. We're not seeing any headway there. I mean, have we submitted costs to the state?
We have submitted all our paperwork.
Do we know how much we've submitted that we're
I'd have to
expecting
look
to
it.
get
I'm not-
back out of the 20,000?
I don't know off the top of my head.
I don't know off the top of my head. I did
talked about
just
that
make
today.
we talked about it today, and I will have a request to DHS to contact them and find out exactly where this stands.
Could you just send us an email or something that says how much we've got on the books with them?
Yep.
That we expect to get refunded?
Okay.
We submit the whole amount and they refund 50% of it, right?
Right, that's correct.
So if you tell us we submitted 30,000, we're only gonna get 15 back, so in order to make the 20, we gotta submit 40.
In line 4049, the rent of buildings, I see there's $10,000 budgeted and we have 0 collected. Are we expecting a rent payment or what's the deal with that?
On which one?
4049 under general government.
That's the MTM building, I think.
Okay.
isn't it?
Yeah.
It says, yeah, we have budgeted $10,000 and for rent. Are we expecting a payment or how's that working?
Well, that's a number of things. It's one, it was rent from Head Start, which I don't know why we don't have an amount in there, but we should have something. But they have moved out because of the water damage and won't be there for the rest of the year.
I'm not positive. I did notice that, and it is a question I have. I have a feeling that the money from the rent of the buildings was being offset in one of the expense lines of the rec department for those related programs. So I do
If you
have
find
it
that out
on
and
my
get back
radar.
to
Yep,
us,
I
yeah.
do have it on my
But
radar to
we'll-
look
We'll
at.
rectify that, right? Because we really need to
Yes.
report it as revenue and not
Right.
offsetting
Yeah,
expenses.
absolutely. Any further questions?
Anything further from the council?
But on revenues.
The expense side, I really have nothing more than what I have been saying the last couple months. We're right on track with where we should be on our expenditures. I've notified you the last couple months of where I think some of the overtures or overdrafts were going to be. Winter public works and the legal lines. Potentially in the town clerk budget with the elections, additional election that was unbudgeted for, but other than that, we're pretty well on track. So just monitoring it at this point.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead, Mike.
You probably told us at a prior meeting, I can't remember, why are we over in contingency?
Oh, no, that was something new, and that encompasses grant matching, and we had the $10,000 planning grant through economic development, and so we dispersed the funds out of that account, and in May, the 5,500 went back in. That was the matching, so you won't, year-to-date next month, it won't be
Okay, so that'll
overexpended.
net back out to-
Yes, it will.
All right.
Yep.
And on line, Public Works, under the town engineer budget, I thought we discussed last time about taking bond money out of the base budgets, representing it as a separate bond line item.
Yep,
So that we were
it's-
tracking those bonds, how each bond performed.
Yep, and I am working on it. It's not as simple. I mean, I can provide you more detail. This is just,
Can we get it
I
for
haven't
our
gotten
May-
to it yet.
Possible to have
Yep,
it for the May
I'll get you more
reporting?
detail for your May one, yeah.
Good. And what miscellaneous public services, what falls under that again? Under 425 under public services.
That's AvCog and MMA, Historical Society, LACO, Moxie, and Memorial Day funding.
On the first page on 170, miscellaneous general government, see we've only spent 23% of that. What comes under that line? It's 750,000. I'm just curious what goes into that.
Yep, the part of that's the overlay, and then the TIF credit enhancement payments. So
Those will go out at the end of the year. Is that how that works?
they're sent out twice a year based on the collection of the taxes on those properties. And the amount reflected, let me just make sure before I say. The amount reflected in there, including the outstanding encumbrance, totals what we should have paid out for this year. So it was just the shifting of the whole tax burden. So there will be a savings in that line.
So that represents the amount we set up for the overlay and everything, and then we're only showing what we actually have to expend out of it.
Right.
Okay.
So,
That adjustment gets made at the end of the year.
Yes, go ahead.
And I believe if that line will actually, it's good that the number is where it is, because at the end, when we actually realize that we have a shortfall of revenue, that line will actually help us balance the budget at the end. So I mean, it's important that that line is
Right.
where it's at, so we actually can make up for the shortfall of revenue.
absolutely.
You will see an adjustment in that line for next month. Steve and I were discussing today, and the overlay was based off of the initial tax commitment, and it should have been revised when we did the revised tax commitment. So you will see a reduction in that line for next month, but that will be why.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you explain economic development? Story that's got kind of a negative amount in there.
Those are, oops, sorry. The 710 and 720 accounts refer to revitalization and the Moxie Festival.
I think she means 150 on the front
sorry.
page.
The 150 on the front page,
I'm
sorry.
sorry. Yes, that, when we did the initial transfer from the 01 150 to the 07 700 series, all the costs were transferred, and a subsequent one came in, and to be quite frank with you, at $2.83, I just haven't taken the time to move it yet, but it will be before the end of the year.
That's what I
I'm
thought it was. I
sorry.
just wanted to clarify.
Had a few bigger projects on my plate.
Any further questions or comments from council?
No, it looks like we're gonna be in good shape.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
It's going to be a tight one.
Next item, Twyla?
Town managers report.
Just to review what I gave you, we have pretty much completed our union contracts. We have one contract that's going to mediation, but general unit, and the MAP group will be coming before you with all that for approval and signatures on June 7th, along with, you'll be reviewing the first reading of the wellhead protection. I'll make sure that as soon as Roger gets that to me, I'll get it out to you so you have a chance to walk through it. I did send off a student representative policy Rick and I have worked on, and Terry Trundle, who is the advisor for that group, is reading through it, and we'll be moving forward. They immediately thought of our camera person back there, and he was in my office the next day with questions and corrections to the policy, so he's right on top of things. So we look forward to having that completed and going before the the school committee as well as to the council. The other thing that you'll be talking about on June 7th is we've had a lot of requests from different parts of town about natural gas. Scott Benson, our Economic Development Director, has been working pretty hard with Unitel and trying to find ways we can get this into Lisbon Falls and other areas. We've got some ideas that we'd like to throw out at you at our next meeting. And for other, Brunswick Housing Authority has already put pamphlets in our lobby. If anybody in the public is interested in senior housing, they expect to have that completed by the end of December. And there's pamphlets here that tell you who to contact. It's pretty exciting. They are moving forward with that. And I don't know if I covered it before, but we did talk about it a little bit tonight during the water department. Is the 196 paving. That whole project, we had hoped that we were going to see some of it done this summer, but the feds came in with money, and they've shifted it around from the state money. So the whole corridor from Lewiston Line all the way to Topsom is going to be done next summer, not this summer, and all funded through federal funding. So we will be
to Topsom. Yep, actually, it's way into Lewiston by down by the interstate, actually, all the way to basically the interstate in Topsom.
So even the stuff that was done 3 or 4 years ago, out in front of the school or whatever.
Yep, the whole corridor they're talking about doing. So.
Wow.
Yep. So. On the federal dime, so that's kind of encouraging, and that's why you heard discussions tonight from the water department about.
So that's being done next year?
Next year.
Yeah.
Yep. So
Well, there would be potentially opportunity to work with the water department
Yeah,
to get
we've already
some
been
funding
doing.
to
Right.
potentially replace.
Yeah, I've got some things I need to sit down with Paul and talk about, maybe some funding mechanisms that they might be able to have. First, because of the age of the line, there might be some rural development funding available, grant funding, and things like that. So I'm going to sit down with him as soon as I can and discuss that.
Ken Wells brought up something this evening at a workshop to the effect that when the wellhead protection is finished and gets back here from a town attorney, that it be sent for review to the
Planning board.
planning board.
Yeah.
Is that something that we will be doing?
Oh, yes, yep. As soon as they've approved it, I don't know what the language changes Roger, our attorney, had to make. I just don't know. So I haven't seen the draft and haven't talked to John Potvin, who's the chair, to know exactly what the recommended changes were.
And it will be returned.
Everybody will get a chance to look at it. I want to hear from the planning board before it comes on to the council that there weren't things that could be changed that didn't have to go back to them. So I'll find out for sure. And Roger will be here on the 7th to discuss any questions you have on that, because we have union stuff to talk about. So
That's it. Next item, Twyla?
Is audience participation. At this time, those in the audience who wish to address the council may come forward. Please use the microphone at the podium and state your name and address for the audience here and at home.
Okay. Don Fellows, Lisbon Planning Board. And you just said a couple of things that got my interest when you talk about the wellhead protection. The Planning Board did pass that a number of months ago now, and with the caveat that Roger was supposed to work on Note 14 only with Main Electronics, and some things they were trying to work out there. And Note 14 had to do with who monitored what and how they got to make changes and not make changes, and who had the overall oversight of it. They had some state regulations, and the state was monitoring them, and they didn't want too many layers. However, if you're going to send this back to the planning board, and yet you're going to do the first reading already, are you doing back to the planning board? I'm
as
confused.
soon as I see the draft, I will
send it on to the planning board, and I'll ask Roger if there are enough changes. I don't know what the changes were, so I can't speak to that, but if there's something that has to go back to the planning board, then it won't be it will not be on the June 7th agenda.
Okay.
Thank you, Don.
Larry Fillmore from Lisbon. On the wellhead protection ordinance, I cannot believe that there isn't any procedures or protocols in this organization that allows a ordinance which is as vital to this community as a wellhead protection to be going on and on for 2 to 3 years. I think that there's something wrong with the procedures in the town administration, and I think we need to look at that. Okay, the next thing is, that camera is there so that residents in this town will be advised as to what goes on in these council meetings. But the minute you people go into executive session, the camera's turned off. And I understand that. But when you come back and make your decisions and vote on whatever you did in the executive session, is not recorded to the residents of the town. And that's a disservice to the people in this town. Now, a lot of us don't sit here until you come back because we never know how long you're going to be in there, okay? So we review it, and it's not there. The camera is there, it's supposed to be there to record all of these meetings. And I know that that's a privilege that we have. It isn't a must. And I appreciate the camera being there. But I think that it should also record when you people come out of executive session, so we have a complete record on tape of what's going on in this town. I think that's only fair.
I'll certainly try to look into that. I think that's a reasonable suggestion.
Okay, and the last thing is that the reason that I was pushing on to the disposal of the property and who owns it and all this and that is because the town of Lisbon violated my rights under the Freedom of Access Act because I asked for and received from the town a listing of all of the property owned by the town. It is here. It is dated April 28th. Neither one of those properties discussed tonight is on here. So I was provided false information, which is in a violation of the Freedom of Access Act. And this is why I brought it up. When the public asks for information, it needs to be accurate. And it's not, because we're not doing our jobs right. Those properties were purchased or turned over to the town. They should be on this list. And we should be able to get that information. I came in, I called yesterday and talked to the assessing office. I asked them for the map number because this is by map number. Kathy gave me the map numbers. They weren't on here. I came in this morning and asked her about the owners of those properties. She says they're not owned by the town, according to the computer. I didn't say the computer was right. I just said that is what the computer reads. If we don't have accurate information, how can you guys make accurate decisions? How can the public know what's going on if we cannot be provided accurate information? And I think that's disgraceful that we don't get accurate information.
Thank you, Mr. Fillmore. I certainly agree with you. We have a problem in that department. That's why we need to push forward with a reval so we can make sure we have good quality information there.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I would just like to comment on that. First of all, one of the properties we do not own, right? It still is in
Right,
the
I think
deed
it's correct.
property of Lisbon Emergency, and it was brought before us to see how we want to approach it when it returns back to us, because we know they're moving. The other property, I can't speak to 100%, but based on the records and the timeliness of everything, of when it finally went through foreclosure, and it sounded to me that the town manager mentioned that he had to go through some legal research before he could deem it actually owned by the town. So from those perspectives, I don't think we provided any invalid information. I think we were being cautious on the information that we had and determining whether or not the town owned it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And I will say that that system there is set up to try to provide a benefit to the people of the town, but it isn't a actual like list of deeds or something. It's not a binding system there. Just go ahead.
Tracy Austin, Lisbon. Just a suggestion for the camera request is sometimes executive sessions, as we know, do not have actions to follow, and sometimes that they do. We announce that if we are anticipating an action, that we request our cameraman to stay, but sometimes there is no action to follow, and that would mean that there would be nothing else recorded after you came out of executive session. I would just possibly suggest maybe listing that on the agenda if you are anticipating an action to follow.
That's a good suggestion. Yes, go ahead, Roger.
The one thing that I had brought to my attention, and I did get a couple calls on this issue, was that they waited for an answer and never got it. And they listened to it Thursday night to get the answer. It wasn't there. And it's just that they would like to have, what was the decision of the council on whatever they were waiting for. That's all.
Yeah, maybe he can train me to turn the camera on and off, and I can, put a final vote on there. Anything further? Go ahead, Dot.
As a Realtor, I wondered when the online assessing was going to be back online, as it's really, really helpful as a Realtor and to appraisers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Any idea when it will be back online?
I don't. Mr. Van Tynen and his staff, along with our staff in that office, is working on updating all current material, and I can't give you a date.
On another note, last Saturday I had the occasion to go up to the Lisbon High School playing fields. The Lisbon Junior Athletic League had their open house. Started at 10 o'clock with a parade. I missed the parade, but there were 5 fields, 2 teams on each field. They each played 2 games and switched teams for the first game and the second game. There must have been at least 100 and 150 kids there. They had games, they had activities, as well as the baseball games. It was just a wonderful, wonderful thing to see. I wish everyone could have been up there for that. All of these kids, hopefully, will be kids that will not be arrested in the years to come for drugs, for alcohol problems, for vandalism, for many, many other things. It was just the most heartwarming thing. I was so cold and wet when I got home. Even when I went to bed, I was still cold, but it was beautiful.
Thank you, Dot. Anyone else have comments from the public? All right, next item, Twyla.
There are no appointments. Next item is councilor communications.
Anyone from council have comments? Go ahead, Roger.
I got a couple of, in fact, I got more than a couple, phone calls on this proposed water reservoir on Route 9, on Upland Road. There seems to be not a lot of information because we aren't into the process. I'm wondering if there isn't a way that we can assure the people of this town, or the people, because we have some sitting in the audience right now, that are watching this very closely. It's very important to them. They would like to have a way to keep themselves updated on the moves of what we're going to do with this water tank, reservoir, whatever we want to call it, where it's going to go. Is there any way or any kind of way of transmitting this information to the people so that they can monitor it on a up on the website or something, if there is going to be talk of it? Because these people are very, very concerned. They're very upset about it, and they want to monitor this. And I'd like to have a way that these people can go online or call us to find out if anything is being done, moved, any decisions are being made, so that they can follow up on it.
I mean, I think it's ultimately going to be in the water department's hands, really. They're the ones who are making the decision of where to put
I
it or what.
understand that, but there's something that we can translate to the water department, or, they really want to know what's going on and what the decisions are going to be made.
People are interested. They produce minutes of all their meetings. They just have to go ask to see copies.
That's on the website, isn't it?
I'm not sure if,
The water department,
I know
I
we
think.
get the
Could
minutes
ask.
from them, but I don't
We
know.
can post it if we don't, as long as they're okay with that.
That's up to them if they
Yeah,
want us to
we
post
could
it.
ask them if we could.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine we would post anything they want to give us,
Right.
but I mean, it has to be their
Right.
information,
Right.
because it's really their
It's their
project, their
project.
effort, they have the jurisdiction over it.
Well, I guess,
I mean, if they wanted to give us detailed plans or project analysis work or whatever it is that they're looking at doing, I don't think we'd have a problem with posting it on the website so people could look at it.
so I guess we could post the minutes of the water department on the website if it was.
If
we
the water department's
requested
okay with that,
Or
since
maybe
it's-
Steve could request that, and
Yeah, if you could just,
just so that people in the audience and at home that want to keep up with this particular issue, they'll have a place to retrieve information that's accurate information, other than the hearsay and that they may or may not be receiving.
and I'd suggest too, if people have concerns about the water department, they should go to the water department meeting on Monday, I believe it's the 23rd, am I correct?
Right.
I think that's the 23rd is their next meeting. Yeah, and that's at the water department building down there in Lisbon Falls, and it's open to the public. You can just walk in and sit down and say hi to the guys and watch their meeting and voice your concerns. That's the place to go if you really, you're worried about what's happening.
I mean, the commissioners were elected officials,
Right.
right?
Right.
As
Mhm.
Exactly.
Citizens
Right.
of the water supply.
But
so-
if we can support them
Oh,
and
yeah,
put something
absolutely.
on their
We'll
on
give
our
us information,
website,
post it, but, we need to have the citizens go to them for the answers, because all we have to do is be the middleman.
Can I make a recommendation?
Certainly, Larry.
If we are going to get the meeting minutes from the water board and we're going to post it on our website, there should be a disclaimer there or some instructions to
Right.
have people go back to the water department or the water board in order to get the information
Yep.
if they have questions about the stuff that's presented.
I have a couple of things.
Go ahead.
On the 1st of June, the Maine DOT is coming to do a walkabout in Lisbon Village and Lisbon Center. We did one in Lisbon Falls a couple of years ago, and they come out and they just kind of assess sidewalks for handicap accessibility, maybe pole placement. I think some things we had downtown, some poles really shouldn't have been where they were. I don't know where else we'd put them, but those kinds of things, they'll give us just little tidbits that might be helpful to helping in our revitalization process. The Lisbon Falls one that they came and they did, we sat after and kind of gave them some visions and things we'd like to do differently. And I think they ended up giving us a report after, didn't they?
Yep.
They gave us a report of the area and what could be fixed and things that could be improved upon. So that's June 1st, it's from 1 to 5, and it's at the Farwell Mill. What we did before we started at MTM, we walked through downtown. I'm sure something similar is happening here. And this is through the Economic Development Department. So if you want more information, you can contact Scott and/or Steve about it, I'm sure. And Moxie is in full swing. We had a meeting today. Things are going well. And Moxie shirts are available already. This is the new logo for this year. It's Maine in a bottle. And this artwork was done by a high school student. She's a senior at Lisbon High School. She was awarded, they gave her, I don't know, some sort of award today and a cash prize. We put this out every year for the artwork to be done by somebody local or not local. The last 2 years, it's been students that come from our school. And this is probably one of the most detailed ones we've ever had. She's really done a nice job. Sorry, Fern and Twyla, you can't see it, but ECD, Economic Development, and Twyla have graciously accepted to sell these. Twyla will have them, and they're $15 a piece. We have this is the 2X. We have from 2T to 2X. So if you're interested and you want to get the word out about this year's Moxie Festival, we have them. It has the logo on the front. And they are available on our website also. So if you have folks that would like to buy them from away, they're there, and they can be shipped to them. If you have any other questions, feel free to contact me. That's it.
Thank you, Gina. Anyone else? All right, then. I guess we will see each other next week.
Order 2011-55 to
Right.
adjourn.
To adjourn? Yeah.
seconded.
All those in favor? And opposed?
Order passed, 7-0.